Hello, and welcome to The Legal Edge, Marketing Smarter for Law Firms, the podcast where we sit down with innovators and leaders shaping the future of the practice of law and law firm marketing. I'm your host, Rob Rosasco, and today we're diving into the world of real estate and construction law with a very special guest. Joining me today is Matt Evans, a partner at Evans Law Firm based in Annapolis, Maryland. Matt and his firm specialize in real estate, land use, and construction law, helping developers, contractors, and property owners navigate complex legal challenges. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rob. It's great to be here.
Matt, you've been in the trenches of real estate and construction law in Maryland for a really long time. If you could snap your fingers and make one legal mistake disappear forever from the industry, what would it be?
Wow. That's a tough question. But, on the real estate side, I see so many people try to engage in transactions really without a lawyer, without any legal help. And I think that is one mistake that people make because there are a lot of forms in the residential real estate market, but it's not always a one-size-fits-all solution. And I think real estate agents would be better served if they had someone in their corner on their deals instead of trying to make arguably legal documents on their own.
Okay, understood. All right, let's talk a little bit about your background, where you came from. Matt, talk to me. I know your father was an attorney, so what was it like growing up in that environment with your dad practicing law? Is it something you always wanted to do?
Sure. So, Rob, actually, my grandfather was an attorney in Annapolis, and he became a judge on the circuit court for Anne Arundel County. So I have a deep family history in the law, but I grew up with my grandfather was a sitting judge, and he served from 1955 to 1977. So he was a long time judge. My father went to the Naval Academy, and then after he served as a pilot, he went to law school. Shortly after, he practiced in real estate and related type things, but he eventually purchased a title company and grew it. And a title company is a company that helps with residential and commercial transactions. So they make sure they go smoothly, that the property is transferred clean without any liens, and that basically the whole process is taken care of. In fact, if anybody listening has bought a house in Maryland, they've gone to a title company for the settlement. And he did that for many years, and he's no longer with us, but he practiced law until he was 80, just about. I grew up working around real estate. I actually worked for my dad before I went to law school, so it was heavily involved in different aspects of the title industry before I went to law school. So I've always been involved in sort of real estate law.
Got it. Okay. Well, we've got a lot of important things to talk about as it relates to your business and your practice, but I want to talk about something very quickly that's near and dear to both of our hearts. So initially, tell me, I know you went to Auburn. How'd you end up at Auburn?
So my dad is from Annapolis and went to the Naval Academy, but my mother is from Mississippi and Birmingham. Her family moved while she was in high school from Mississippi to Birmingham, but she went to Ole Miss, and I spent my summers growing up in Birmingham visiting my aunts and uncles and relatives. When it came time to look at colleges, I went to Ole Miss, I went to Auburn. I did not go to Alabama. I told my mom I had no interest. I went to Auburn. I fell in love with it the minute I got there. And I said, Mom, this is where I'm going. And she said, well, why not Ole Miss? I just fell in love with it. So, I have Southern roots. I still have a lot of family in Birmingham. And I, in fact, went to law school in Birmingham.
Now, your family, are they Alabama fans or are they Auburn fans?
I've got both. Just like the typical Alabama families, we're a house divided. I have some cousins who I don't speak with a lot during football season because they're Alabama fans. And I have an uncle and cousins that went to Auburn as well. So,
gotcha.
Yep.
And we can gloat for a minute after this weekend's outcome. So, War Eagle.
That was
all right,
fantastic.
very good. So we talked a little bit about your dad, your grandfather, and your father, both being attorneys. So I am, of course, assuming that had something to do with leading you into the practice of law. But was there anything else that led you down that path? And other than perhaps, again, your father's involvement in real estate, was there anything else that led you down that path of real estate law and land use, construction law?
Sure. So, when I left law school, I didn't really know what I wanted to practice. And I went to work for a mid-sized law firm here in Annapolis. And They immediately sent me off to court, which was not something I thought I would be doing. I thought maybe I'd go into transactions or estates and trusts, wills, things like that. And I immediately was sent off to court on smaller matters. And, after they developed sort of us, the younger attorneys in the courtroom, they asked us what we wanted to do. And I looked around the firm and I decided we didn't have a construction law attorney. And that's what I first decided, because I love the idea of, and we had real estate attorneys. So it wasn't like I was trying to think of a unique area where I could make myself valuable to the law firm.
Yep.
In addition to my knowledge of real estate. And so I started taking legal education for anything having to do with construction law. And so that sort of is where I got my start. After about 11 years, I left that firm and started my own firm. When I left, I just decided I want to do what I like to do. And what I like is real estate and construction, because I had the experience, and then a light land use. And we do some more sophisticated land use now, but at the time, I thought, I want to do that. That's what I like to do. And I'm going to try to make a run of it. And here we are 12 years later, and my firm's still growing.
And I'm assuming, hoping, of course, that you still like what you're doing?
I do most of the time, right? Most of the time.
Yeah.
I guess there's always moments.
Yeah, that's true for all of us.
And as I've gotten older, I am pickier with the cases. So yes, I'm not even taking cases that, if I'm not going to be interested. I mean, we do some stuff. I have associates who work on cases, but me personally, I take cases I really want to sink my teeth into, and which are really interesting, which have become more and more complicated real estate title cases, property lines, disputes, things like that.
Okay. So talk a little bit about, Matt, what your vision was for the Evans Law Firm when you left the larger firm and hung out your own shingle. I mean, where did you see yourself? Where did you see the firm in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? What was your vision in terms of the future of the firm?
Sure. So I started the firm in my house, right? I quit my job, and the next day I was in my house, contacting people and clients. My vision was to own my own building. I knew from being in real estate law that buying real estate, investing in real estate is one great way to generate wealth in the long term. And I wanted to grow. I wanted to be the best real estate law firm, in the area. I won't say the whole state, but in the area. And I wanted it to be a sort of small to mid-sized law firm with maybe between 5 and 10 attorneys and a support staff. And, I just wanted to be a go-to resource for realtors and for anybody that needs help with real estate. I wanted our name to come up in those conversations.
And how has that evolved over time? I mean, are you comfortable with over the 12 years with the growth the firm has made? I know there's been ebbs and flows based on the economy and things beyond your control, but overall, are you happy with the progress of the firm? Do you feel as if you've made headway in terms of being that go-to firm?
Absolutely, for sure. There have been a lot of challenges, and I did not graduate from Auburn with a business degree. So it's been quite a bit of learning, but I do own my own building. We do have 5 attorneys. We have a nice support staff. And yes, generally, I think when conversations come up about someone needing a real estate attorney, I think we're definitely in the conversation.
Okay.
So it's a work in progress, but I think we definitely have been going in the right direction.
Good. Actually, something you just said sort of piqued an interest. You mentioned that you didn't study business at Auburn, and I know from personal experience in working with and having the opportunity to talk with a great number of attorneys over the past 30 years, business and managing your own firm isn't necessarily at the top of the list of things they teach you in law school. So talk a little bit about that. I'm sure you were confident in your legal abilities when you opened your own firm, but what was your perspective when you first opened the firm in terms of managing the firm? And how has that changed over time?
So it's evolved for sure, but it's been trial by fire, so to speak. I started and the first hire I made, I first rented an office space, and then I hired an administrator to sort of handle phone calls and just administrative duties. Then I hired my first associate, and I had one associate for quite a while. Honestly, COVID changed things a lot, and actually, in many ways, was beneficial for me. It made me really decide to pump more money into online marketing. And that's really when I saw a tremendous growth. Like, I was growing slowly and organically, and I was out in the community and I was involved, and I still am. But I didn't see a rapid growth until we were not allowed to go out and do the traditional marketing because of COVID.
Right.
I think I forgot your question now. I'm not sure if I answered it.
Just how your business persona has evolved over time, managing the firm administratively.
And the only other thing I'd add is that I do less legal work than I used to. It's much more about running a business, managing the employees. It's always something every day. I'm still overseeing the cases. I'm overseeing their work. But as far as doing the work, that's not what I do from 9 to 5 every day.
Yep. Okay. Talk a little bit about, Matt, if you can think back to an example or two in which a client hired you and they were facing a really tough situation and you were able to help them through whatever legal challenge they were facing. Is there one or two examples of a time which sticks out to you in which you were able to help a client through a difficult situation and both of you enjoy success at the end of the road?
So there's been a lot of this. I mean, I like to think that's why I do this, to help people. My claim to fame, my one case that I can talk about is a case where a house was infested with snakes. And it in fact became a local sort of sensation. And it became a national sensation. It was actually mentioned on TV shows like Nancy Grace, The Today Show. I did not get on any of those shows, but it was a major case where a young family moved into a house. It was our contention that the house was infested with black snakes, not deadly, but nonetheless unnerving. When the spring came and the snakes started coming out of the crevices of the house, we came within 5 days of a jury trial. And I think based on the work that we did, we were able to get the other side to come to a very good settlement, and the clients were happy, and they're still friends of mine to this day. And I think they were very pleased with the result.
What do you do about a house full of snakes?
And the outcome, unfortunately, was confidential. We had a confidential settlement.
Gotcha.
But the outcome was what my clients wanted. They no longer wanted to be in the house. As a matter of public record, they were able to get rid of the house as part of the settlement.
Okay. Got it.
So I can say that because that was a public record. And there were some other components to the settlement.
There was an instance not too long ago where we had some construction work done down in our basement, and one of the workers was up in the drop ceiling in our basement and found a 2-foot long black snake. And my wife wanted to move out after seeing one black snake in the house. So I can only imagine.
I think we were probably at 24.
Oh, wow.
By the time we were done. That might be an exaggeration, but it was somewhere over in the double digits.
Yeah, completely understand. No, thank you.
And apparently they're very hard to get rid of. Once they pick a place to overwinter, they're sort of in a semi-conscious state, but they come back and then they bring their kids back. They found a safe place.
Exactly.
Very, very difficult to get rid of.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to some more practical insights in terms of your practice areas. Obviously, over the years, you've worked with countless developers and contractors. Share with me, what are the most common legal mistakes you see in real estate transactions or real estate contracts or developer contracts?
So I think the biggest thing I see, and I do a lot of work with smaller contractors. We do work with some large ones too, but the mistakes I see are generally smaller general contractors, subcontractors who are very good at what they do, but they don't pay attention to the contracting side of it. I see the same thing with contractors, and the best thing they can do is spend a little money to have a very good form contract drawn up. And, because there are requirements depending on exactly what they're doing, whether it's a new home, whether it's just a worker who's coming in to do renovations in your home, there's different requirements for the contract. And not having what's required in the contracts can be very, very detrimental if it comes time to collect and you're not getting paid.
Yep.
So that's the biggest mistake is I think they're doing really well. They're rolling along. They don't have any problems. I mean, I've had so many contractors come to me and say, Matt, I've been doing this for 20 years and I've never had a problem. And I tell them I'm surprised because this one-page contract that you have is not legal. It does not meet the requirements of Maryland state law. So that is really, it is treating their business like a business and worrying about the business side of it as much as doing a great job.
Right. In terms of their trade. But like with most business owners, and I'm sure this is something you can empathize with, you never really worry about problems until you're faced with one. And sadly, sometimes when you're faced with them, they can be very costly.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about that. What's the most costly mistake or the costliest mistake that you've ever seen a client make before they actually came to you and said, Matt, help?
Recently, I had someone contact me and they were a home improvement contractor, which in Maryland can mean a variety of things. It can be a very substantial renovation, maybe an addition, things like that. But the business partner had let their Maryland home improvement license lapse. In that case, doing contracting without a home improvement license is a crime, and you can't maintain a suit in court because you would be admitting to a crime. But they were owed a substantial amount of money, and I had to say, look, there's nothing we can do. You don't want to go to court and admit that you've committed a crime. This person knows the law, and unfortunately, we were dealing with someone who knew the law and was able to determine that they didn't have a proper license. And I said, I think you need to just walk away from this one.
How much money was involved, just out of curiosity?
I want to say it was low six figures.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a substantial amount. And there are some other aspects of it and some other ideas of where we maybe get some of the money, but generally it was a tough one.
Okay. Well, it again underscores the importance of keeping a good handle on the business aspect of your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This was a business partner who was not as much involved in the day-to-day, but was responsible for maintaining the home improvement license. And these folks had one. They weren't like a bad contract.
Right.
It had lapsed.
It was just simply an oversight.
It was an oversight. They did not renew it.
And just out of curiosity, the business partner, was he involved in, did he swing a hammer, figuratively speaking?
No.
Oh,
he was more the business side.
Right.
But I think that person had gotten sidetracked with maybe... I really don't remember, but maybe some other matters. Things can happen, right? Life. And yeah.
Matt, talk a little bit about how can law firms or attorneys in general do a better job of proactively helping clients avoid these kinds of issues? Lines of communication or webinars, or what do you think is the best way or best ways to help either your clients or prospective clients avoid these kinds of issues?
First, you need to get in front of them, right? There are different organizations that I've been involved in over my career, including the Maryland Realtors Association and ABC, Associated Builders and Contractors. It's good to be involved. The potential clients should be involved with these organizations because they provide so many resources. But for me, every time I talk to a potential client about a problem, I'd say, please let me just look at your contracts. I'm happy to do it at no charge and tell you how they are, what they might need, and how much it would cost, obviously, for me to rewrite them or correct them. But I think that that's always a service that I provide with potential clients. So for me, it's just getting in front of as many different people in the industry as I can.
And based on past experience, if 10 contractors allowed you to review their contracts, how many of them would have to be updated, rewritten, overhauled?
All 10.
All 10. Okay.
All 10 would, the different codes are very hard to navigate. Now, if they've hired an attorney before to write them in the first place, most of the time it's very little, but the codes do change from time to time and are updated. But depending on so many different laws in construction regarding whether you're doing a home improvement, a new home, a custom home, and there are requirements for each different contract that can be difficult to navigate. And without an attorney, it would be almost impossible.
Okay. So now looking ahead, how do you see real estate law, construction law in the state of Maryland evolving over the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, with our new administration, and there's no telling what's going to happen, I think. It's very very hard to tell what's going to happen with the housing market. I mean, things are, in flux in Washington. And actually, our economy here in Annapolis is very much influenced by what's going on in Washington because we have so many federal workers that live in Annapolis and the surrounding areas. And in Maryland, that's going to affect, just people being able to afford their houses and their mortgages. And from there on, whether they would be renovating their house and spending money on things like that. I mean, I think things are in flux. It's really an unprecedented time, I think.
Well, with that thought in mind, I know the administration's we're not at 100 days yet, but you can't turn on, certainly not the local news, but you can't turn on the news and not see some sort of report on where the administration stands in its first 100 days. But with that thought in mind, and what you just shared with me a couple of minutes ago, is there a recent trend or a regulatory issue or shift that you see changing the field of play for developers or contractors?
No, I don't really for developers or contractors because those issues are so local. So if you're building in the city of Annapolis or Anne Arundel County or Baltimore City, it's different. So I don't know that anything that's going over there is going to affect construction laws so much. I guess I was speaking more about financially in the industry and how people can afford to do these things. I mean, interest rates have been higher than they were traditionally, but there's been a lot of activity. Things have been busy. I have not seen any slowdown.
Okay.
In people buying commercial properties, developing commercial properties. Things in this area have stayed rather busy.
Now, how about within the state of Maryland or in Anne Arundel County or Baltimore County? Have there been any, you mentioned things have been busy, so I guess the trend is at least stable, static, if not moving up ever so slightly. But have there been any trends or regulatory changes on a state or county level that have impacted developers or builders?
Well, so in Maryland, we had a Republican governor who was more pro-business. He wasn't extremely conservative, but he was more pro-business, more for less regulation. And I think now that we have a new administration, that we should expect an increase in sort of regulatory oversight and things like that. But it hasn't been that long, so right now, they're dealing with the budget. There's budget issues in Maryland, so I think that's been their focus. I have not seen much in my particular area.
Okay, got it. Let's talk a little bit about marketing now. You shared with me a little earlier in the conversation that early on, I guess you weren't investing a great deal of money into your marketing or online marketing. When you realized you needed to do that, that's when you noticed an uptick in your business. Talk to me a little bit about what strategies you think have worked or have been the most effective in growing the firm and increasing the size of your client base?
Absolutely. So my firm was pretty stagnant for a while. I mean, we were busy, but I wasn't hiring more people. It was really just me and one other associate and an administrative person. I was out on a weekly basis, socializing, going to meetings for industry groups like the realtors, and I was going to the Chamber of Commerce. I mean, you would have seen me at everything. I'm a little bit older now, but I was out on the streets. That's how I learned to get business, right? Handshaking, meeting people, et cetera. And we were really very busy, but I could never quite take that step to the next level where I really felt like my firm was turning into something. And COVID happened. One day we didn't even know if we were allowed to stay open. Fortunately, I think attorneys were considered essential, maybe. I don't know. So we were allowed to sleep. And honestly, somehow I hooked up with you, Rob. I don't remember how it happened. But before that, I spent money on sponsorships. I spent money on sponsorships, right? And being involved in organizations. I was on a couple of boards. I just was involved in things that I like to do with people I like to meet and should meet. And I was involved in business groups. And that just stopped. So at some point, I decided I had to do something else, right? I have kids. I have a family to support. I couldn't let COVID take my business down. And I started investing more money in advertising. And really, I saw results almost overnight. Just popping from my name coming up high, my firm coming up high on Google. When you type in real estate law, we also invested in software upgrades at the time. It was a good time. So we're able to handle a bigger call volume. We have automated a lot of our intake and our file opening and things like that. So we were able just to increase. I mean, the calls come in. I'm doing 2 to 3 consults every day now. I really think investing in the search engine optimization, things that you could probably speak to better than me, has really just paid dividends. And I started adding attorneys. So I went from having that one attorney. I was hiring during COVID. I now have 4 other attorneys and myself. And we're still growing.
Let's go back to the beginning, not the beginning of your legal career, but the beginning of your business. So 12 years ago, if you knew then what you know now, what would be the first thing from a marketing perspective? What would be the first thing you would do when you arrived at your office for the first day?
This might not be the direction I would think, but the first thing I would do is make sure I've got the infrastructure set up to handle the business.
Yep.
Because if you bring it in and you can't keep people happy, we've gone through growing pains. You start bringing in a lot of business and then you got to ramp up and hire people. But there's a time in between when you don't know if you have enough and you're not ready to hire somebody. Having the infrastructure at least, and I didn't do this, but that's what I would tell people to do. We started bringing in the business and then we had to figure out how to handle it. And I think that's the way a lot of businesses grow.
Absolutely.
Right? You're right. You don't want to spend money on things until you know you're going to have the business.
Absolutely.
But I think infrastructure and then online marketing. The thing about online marketing, you really have to be targeted because I'm not looking for just anyone to call. I want people who have good cases and have the financial ability to pay an attorney. It's an expensive proposition to get involved in a lawsuit.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
I think you just alluded to it, but I'll ask the question anyway. So if a young attorney came to you and they were thinking about hanging out their own shingle, what would be a first bit of advice you would give them about starting their new practice? First, in general, and then I'm curious specifically about marketing their practice.
It would depend on how much experience they had. I would urge any new attorney to not go out on their own. I think it is a very difficult prospect. And in fact, I don't have numbers to back this up, but what we're told usually in the industry is that most malpractice claims are against solo practitioners, small firms who don't have the infrastructure in place to handle client communications well and things like that. So I would tell them, hey, go out and get some experience before you start your own firm. Maybe take some business classes. But when you start your own firm, invest in marketing, invest your time in getting out in the community to meet people and come the best you can be in the area you want to be. To add on that, I would tell them to focus at least within a particular area. You don't have to be super specialized, but you don't want to be a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
And that's just the way the industry has turned from when I started to now. I mean, back when I started, there were still a lot of attorneys who handled a lot of different kinds of matters. And now it's pretty much everyone specializes.
Matt, this has really been an incredible conversation. Thank you. I appreciate your time and thanks for joining us. But before we wrap up, what's the one thing that you would want every real estate investor, a developer, or contractor know before they started a relationship with a law firm?
Well, that's a good question. The first thing I would want them to know is, in the grand scheme of your projects, hiring an attorney is not that expensive because it can protect you in so many ways. Typically, if you can engage an attorney who can create the proper forms for your business, you can use those over and over and over, and you can build that cost into your projects as well. But I think that there is a myth that attorneys can be expensive.
And I'm sure the investment in working with an attorney can save you tenfold down the road.
Sure. And having a relationship with an attorney who you can just pick up the phone and call is invaluable. I love it when my realtors, when my contractors have me on speed dial, shoot me an email. I'm happy to answer emails at all times. Not asking the question of your attorney is probably one of the biggest mistakes you can make.
Okay. So for anyone who wants to connect with you or learn more about the firm, the Evans Law Firm, what's the best way for people to reach you?
Well, the first way is to go to my website, which gives a good overview. But beyond that, I just encourage people to reach out. My email address is on the website. Reach out and ask me questions. I'm happy to talk to people. I love talking to people in the real estate and construction industry. I really do.
Good deal. Again, Matt, thank you. And if you've enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to The Legal Edge and leave us a review. We bring on the top legal minds and marketing experts to help law firms grow smarter. Thank you for listening.